Welcome to the final episode of the entire course. Throughout this series, you have probably seen Salesforce marketing terms floating around Agentforce Vibes, and it would be easy to assume they all are the same thing or that they overlap with what we have been building. They don't. This episode exists purely to draw clean lines between three distinct things: Salesforce native Agentforce platform, a separate product called Agentforce Vibes, and the Claude plus MCP approach this entire course has taught you. By the end, you will be able to hear any of these terms in a keynote or blog post and immediately know exactly what's being talked about, and just as importantly, when each one is actually the right tool for the job. Let's be upfront about scope one more time because it matters. We are not building anything on Agentforce in this episode or anywhere else in this course. That's been true since episode 1. This episode is comparison only. The goal isn't to teach you Agentforce, is to make sure that when you encounter these three terms in the wild, you are not confused about which one is which, and you know when someone recommends Agentforce is actually talking about a native platform, the coding tool, or something else entirely. First up, the one most people means one when they just say Agentforce. Salesforce native no-code and pro-code platform for building autonomous AI agents that live and run entirely inside Salesforce itself. You build these with Agent Builder, defining topics and actions, all inside setup. These agents are designed to be persistent and end-user facing, and they come with Salesforce own governance tooling built around them. Again, this course does not teach you how to build on this platform. It's here purely so you can recognize it when you see it referenced elsewhere. This is the one that trips people up the most because the name sounds like it's part of Agentforce, but is actually a completely separate product. Agentforce Vibes is Salesforce's own branded AI coding IDE and assistant built for writing Salesforce apps faster. Here's the twist that makes it relevant to this course. It uses Claude Sonnet as its default underlying model. But makes no mistake, it's Salesforce's own tool, Salesforce's own IDE, running Salesforce's own workflow around that model. It's a direct competitor to Claude Code as a coding tool, not a rebrand of it, and not the same thing we have been using in Module 3. Here's how the licensing has actually played out. Agentforce Vibes was announced as free on Developer Edition of in April 2026 with a capped free allotment roughly of 110 requests or about 1.5 million tokens running on Claude Sonnet 4.5, specifically on Developer Edition of, but starting June 1st, 2026, it became a paid meter feature for anyone outside of Developer Edition, funded either through Flex Credit or specific AI user license. I want to flag that these are the announced figures as of when this was recorded. Always double check Salesforce own release note before you plan a project around exact numbers, since these allotments and licensing details are exactly the kind of thing that shifts over time. And now the things you have actually spent this entire course building. For business tasks, that's Claude.ai or Claude Desktop connected through Salesforce official hosted MCP servers. Modules 2 territory. For developer tasks, that's Cloud Code connected through official DX MCP server. Module 3 territory. The thread that ties both of these together and separates them from both flavors of Agentforce is this. You're using Claude directly from outside Salesforce as your interface, not building an agent that lives and operates inside Salesforce's own platform. Let's put all three side by side in the simplest possible terms. Agentforce is the native in Salesforce agent building platform, not taught in this course. Agentforce Vibes is the Salesforce own API coding IDE that happens to use Claude Sonnet under the hood, also not taught here, also comparison only. And Claude plus MCP, Claude.ai or desktop with hosted MCP servers, and Claude Code with the DX MCP server. That's the entire course you just enrolled. Three names, three very different things, and now you know exactly which is which. Let's go a level deeper with a proper side by side across the dimension that actually matter when you are choosing a tool. Where does it live? Inside Salesforce for both flavors of Agentforce versus outside Salesforce via cloud for our approach. Who builds and maintains it? Admins and agent builder versus Salesforce devs in org versus you directly through conversation with Claude. What's this best for? What's the licensing model? How steep is the learning curve? And the one that matter most for wrapping up this course, did we actually teach it? Take a moment to actually read through this table. It's the cleanest snapshot of everything we have covered in this episode. I want to be fair and specific here because it would be easy to make this course sound dismissive of agent force, and that's not the intent. Native agent force genuinely is the better choice when you want a persistent, always on agent that end user interact with directly inside Salesforce without ever needing to open an external chat tool like Claude. It's also the right call when you specifically need Salesforce own agent governance tooling, audit trails, and topic and action control built natively for the platform. If your users live in Salesforce all day, and that's the only place they will ever interact with an agent, Agentforce is the right tool for the job. On the flip side is what you have learned in this course is the better fit. When you or your team want one powerful conversational interface that spans multiple systems, not just Salesforce, when you want full control from the cloud side, your choice of model, your own prompting style, the same conversational tool you already use for everything else in your work, and especially for developer work, Apex, metadata, real deployment, where cloud code, terminal native agentic workflow beats working inside a browser based IDE. That's the exact use case this entire course was built around. One last important point before we wrap up. These approaches are not in competition with each other in the way a comparison table might suggest. A team can absolutely run native Agentforce for end user facing automation inside Salesforce, while the people who actually build and operate that org use Claude plus MCP for their own day to day work. The right way to choose isn't which one sounds more impressive, it is who is using this and where do they already live. Different tool, different job, and both can coexist in the same organization without any conflict. Quick recap before we close out the whole course. Agentforce, Salesforce native in Salesforce agent platform, not taught in this course. Agentforce Vibes, Salesforce own coding IDE that uses Claude Sonnet under the hood, also not taught here. And Claude plus MCP, standard hosted MCP for business work, a custom Salesforce approval tool layered on that business side when needed, and the DX MCP server for dev work. That's the entire arc you just completed across 5 modules. Three names cleanly separated, and you know exactly where each one fits. Let's take a step back and look at the whole journey. Module 1 got Cloud connected to real Salesforce org for the very first time. Module 2 turned that connection into genuine business agent work through the hosted MCP server, then showed you how to wrap an existing approval workflow as a custom Salesforce MCP tool when the standard surface was too low level. Module 3 brought in Claude Code and the DX MCP server for real developer workflows, epics, metadata, actual deployment. Module 4 made sure you understood the governance and the permission model, so you're doing all of this safely. And Module 5, the one you're finishing right now, covered the practical realities of cost, limits, and exactly where this approach fits next to Salesforce's own native tooling. That's the complete picture. And that's the course you started out knowing how to get Claude and Salesforce talking to each other. And you are finishing able to run real business queries, kick off governed approval workflows through a custom tool, ship real Apex changes and reasons clearly about security and cost, all through a conversational interface you already know how to use. If this saved you hours of task switching between Salesforce and your AI tool, please hit subscribe. If something broke along the way or you have got questions about your own org setup, drop them in the comments. I read everyone. And if you go connect Claude to your own org and build something with it, share it, tag it, me on LinkedIn. I did genuinely love to see what you build. Thanks for sticking with me through all the 5 modules. This is Hirday signing off. Now go connect Claude to your own org and put this to work.